Okay, welcome everyone to our midterm, already week 4 uh, of our class. Just wanted to give everybody the heads up that you do have that midterm exam due this week by Sunday at midnight. So want to make sure that everybody's aware of that you're studying for it and prepping. So one of the first things that I'm going to do is just kind of go through my um, uh, kind of help for you to prep for this exam. There is a study guide out there, Module 4 and Midterm Study Guide. So if you go into Module 4 and you take a look at down here, you have the Module 4 and Midterm Study Guide. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure you take a look at that and use that to help you prep. Okay, so that's what this looks like, right? And make sure you just go through and answer these questions. Okay, so for Module 4, that kind of helps you get ready for the quiz. And then the midterm tells you exactly how to complete the midterm. And I want to highlight this information because when you get into the midterm, you're going to see that there are a lot of exact match type scenarios. Okay, so in those, you're being asked to calculate a problem. Okay, so like for instance, you might be asked to calculate, what is owner's equity, right? And so you have to put a number in there. You are not going to use decimals, and you're not going to use the dollar sign. Okay, so for instance, if your answer was $25,000, you would put 25,000, just the 25,000, no decimal point. Okay, so the exact format should appear as 25,000 in your box. Okay, that you're left there to fill in your answer. Okay, if you put a dollar sign or a decimal, the exact match will say that your answer is incorrect and it will not give you any credit for that. So this is an all or nothing thing. You've got to pay attention to these instructions. If you don't, it counts off. And unfortunately, this is an auto-graded midterm, so there's no opportunity for me to say, oh, partial credit, right? So I can go in and allow corrections to be made, but we'll talk about that after the fact. The exam's very straightforward. We will have an opportunity after the fact to go over that exam, and I will give you the opportunity to correct your mistakes with explanations of what you did wrong and how to work some of the problems correctly um, after the exam is over with. Okay, for some credit back on those problems that you missed. Okay, but again, in order to get the most points that you can get, it's best to do it correctly the first time. Make sure you're prepared for the exam, and you know how to work these problems. Okay, so forget you have 80 minutes to complete. I've actually taken the time limit off of this exam, I'm pretty sure. If I haven't, I will. But I'm nearly positive I took the time limit off. So remove that and don't worry about it. So again, you can use your notes, your homework notes. I highly recommend you go back and you pull all of your homework problems with the homework solution that you've been given. So the answers, and you make sure you compare the two, understand what you did wrong, and then you should be good to go on the midterm itself. Okay, each question is going to be worth 10 or 20 points for a total of 350. Okay, so it's all or nothing. Again, either the answer is right or it's wrong. So There's no partial credit on this one. The final will not be this way. The final is, again, a take-home final, open book, open notes, and I grade it. Of course, I will give partial credit for problems that are worked in somewhat of a correct manner. But again, it's you've got to show me that maybe just messed up in your math or something like that, right? So, at any rate, you have the areas tested down here that tell you what you need to be ready to calculate. Okay. So these are the things that need to be calculated, right? So you need to know what makes up net income, what makes up owner's equity, liabilities, assets, operating expenses, right? Sales returns and allowances, gross profit, income in operations, sales revenue, COGS, which is cost of goods sold, and income from operations. Okay, so you need to make sure that you understand how to calculate each one of those and what numbers go into those formulas. Okay, and how to arrive at the numbers that do go into those formulas. Because again, you could be asked to work these backwards. Like you might be given COGS and asked to find sales, right? You might be given COGS and gross profit, and ask your way to work backwards to something. So you have to understand how to get back to those answers. Okay, so just make sure you know how to calculate this inside and out and how you would go about getting those calculated. And again, please, 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 please pay attention to the format of your answer on those numbers. Okay, just a 25, comma 000. No dollar sign, no decimals. Okay, everything will be a round answer. If you get anything but a round answer, then you've gotten a wrong answer. Okay. All right. The other thing that it asks you, a choice of how a GL account is affected. So does it increase or decrease, right? Or is it unaffected based on the scenario that's given? Okay. So, it could be something like there could potentially be some tricks in here, like it could ask you what happens to cash when something is purchased on account. Okay. What's the answer to that? If cash is What happens to the cash GL account when something is purchased on account? There's a trick to that. Anybody know? Don't be shy, guys. Is it increased? Is it decreased? Or is it unaffected? Cash, when something is purchased on account. This is a trick question. Listen to the words. So say these things to yourself out loud. When something is purchased on account, what happens? What gets hit? Is it cash? Or is it accounts payable? Anybody? You guys with me? Yeah, it is tricky. Think of the words on account. When you purchase something on account, did you pay cash for that? Or did you put it on credit? Credit. Right. So what happens to cash when you put it on credit? Think of your own personal situations. Does anything come out of your bank account when you put something unaffected? Good. Good, good, good. Nothing happened to it. Nothing happens to cash when you purchase something on account. Nothing happens to cash when a customer purchases something on account. So when you make a sale and it's on account, where does it go? Which account? Not payable. Because payable, remember, payables are when you, the business, purchases something on account. When you make a sale, somebody owes you money. So accounts not payable, but receivable. Very good. Yes. So when when a customer purchases something on account, it hits accounts receivable. What if they paid you cash for it? What if they didn't put it on account? Then it hits your bank account. It hits your cash. Okay? So just think of your own personal situations, okay? When you put something on a credit card and you've purchased something from a company, you're their customer. Okay? So that company records an entry that says they now have a receivable, right? Because they've given you credit. Okay, so you still owe them money. So they have an accounts receivable. Good example of this is if you go to the doctor's office, right? Not all of them ask for money up front unless you have a copay, but let's say they have to run things through insurance. They're not going to ask you to put down money that day. They're going to run things through insurance first. So you owe them money technically, so you're purchasing the doctor's services on account. So it's a receivable to them, it's a payable to you because you still owe them money. Okay? Same thing would apply if you had your own business. Customer comes in and, let's say you manufacture something that one of your big, customers wants to purchase a bunch of from you. And you say, okay, we're gonna fulfill the order on account, right? So we're going to give you 1,000 widgets on account, and you're gonna owe us $10,000. Okay, so they owe you $10,000 in accounts receivable. When they pay for that, you then make an entry to reduce your accounts receivable and increase your cash. So when you make a payment, you're reducing that receivable and increasing cash, okay, as a company that's selling something. As a company that is purchasing something from somebody, so this is on the payable side. So you have to think of two sides of the house here, right? You've got the sales side, which is the top part of our income statement, and you got the expense side, which is the payables part of our income statement, right? Unless we've paid cash for it. So the expense side is what can become a payable for us, okay? So if we purchase something on account, like supplies, say, to make our widget, okay, then we owe, let's say, $1,000. It costs us $1,000 to make those widgets, those 1,000 widgets. Okay, so now we owe somebody $1,000 for the supplies to make those 1,000 widgets. So that's on accounts payable. When we pay for those out of our checking account, okay, that payable is decreased and our cash is also decreased. Okay, but our asset is increased, and the asset would be supplies. Make sense? Okay. So you just have to think of things in terms of scenarios. Put it in your own mind, okay? So those are some things that you're going to have to be able to do in terms of calculating things and then also telling how a GL account is affected, okay? So think very carefully through these, okay? So if you purchase office supplies on account, that transaction will do what? Increase, decrease, or have no effect on assets. If you purchase office supplies on account, increase assets, decrease assets, or have no effect on assets. It increases it. Good. Very good. See, that's exactly how simple it is. I mean, you choose which one it does. You choose, does it increase, decrease, or have no effect on. Those are your three options. Okay, so you just have to think about truly what that particular question is saying when you go through to take this exam. Okay, so think about what it's saying. Purchase office supplies on account. The transaction does what to assets? What does the transaction do to liabilities? So those are the types of things that you're going to have to be able to decipher and go down through the income statement and the balance sheet and make sure you can kind of run through some of those scenarios in your mind. Like you're going to have to be able to do this on things like owner's equity. Liabilities, assets, owner's equity are the main ones that it really, really hits on in terms of getting you to say, does it increase, decrease, or have no effect on? Okay, so really focus on that balance sheet side, but you definitely need to know that part. The rest of them are literally calculating problems. If you understand the how to calculate all of this up here, you're ready to go. You can hop in and take that. Also keep in mind that once you go into to the exam itself, you're going to have to sit through and take it all at the same time. The exam does not allow you to go out and come back in. So once you close or submit this, the exam is going to grade your exam. If you failed to put answers in some of the boxes, it will count it wrong. Okay? So make sure that you check and that you have completed all of the problems before you close this out. Okay? There's 26 questions. So it's not an extremely long exam. It's just going to take some brain power to kind of figure out. And the problems really are very basic. Okay? They're not, it's addition, subtraction, right? So basically, if you understand what I've given you here, you should be fine. Any questions on the midterm so far? No questions? Okay. All right. Moving on to homework problems then. Do we have any questions on the homework problems for this week? Or for last week, for that matter? Anything that you didn't understand or need to go over? Chapter 6, I don't believe is on the exam. No. Had a question, did you say Chapter 6 is not on the exam, or was that from an old webinar? The old webinar applies. I don't, yeah, Chapter 6 is not on this. So you go up to Chapter 5. Okay? Other questions? That does make life a little easier, doesn't it? Chapter 6 will be on the final, though, I promise. So, keep in mind, all of this stuff is cumulative, guys, so you do have to learn it. It's going to keep building, and if any of you come back to take managerial accounting with me, Everything that we do in financial gets applied over in managerial. So this isn't a subject that you can't just say, oh, I don't need to know that. It's a one and done type of thing. With accounting, that's not true. With accounting, it really does build. So if you're not understanding something, please be sure to ask the question, because I want to make sure that I clear that up for you and that you understand it, so that going forward you do really well with the future problems, and the concepts build nicely for you. Other questions? Okay. If you need to unmute yourself to ask a question, that's fine too, if it's quicker than typing. Happy to hear voices. All right, guys, if there's no other questions, if you come up with anything that you do have a question with, please be sure to email me before the exam, or before the deadline. Please make sure and keep in mind that the exam does have to be completed by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Okay. Uh, we do have to turn in midterm grades, so I have to have those graded quickly. Luckily, that shouldn't be an issue with this one. If you don't do well, don't panic. Okay. Um, I've had students in the past that just didn't do that well in the first exam, and a lot of times that's to be expected. You don't know how these are going to go. All you can do is prep the best of your ability, and don't panic. Okay. um, there is an opportunity, as I said, to correct your exam, and do that for partial credit back on the exam points, and then I will go in and make that update to your exam grade. Okay. So at any rate, just keep that in mind. But let's see how many perfect scores we can get, how many A's we can get. I know everybody in here can do it, so uh, let's shoot for it, and hope to see some great things this weekend. Okay. All right. Anything else this evening before we cut off? You are very welcome, Christopher. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have a wonderful week. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and we will talk again next week. You are welcome. All right. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Good night.